Okay, people, so we're at the search button looking for a name. We're on our strings program, look for a name. The idea of the button was to tell us if a name is there or not. So we're going to ask the user, which name are you looking for? We want to go through the list, see if it's there. If it's there, we want to say yes, the name is there, or no, the name is not there. Alright, so we started all this thing, we realized our message we only want to see once. We don't want to see lots of messages lots of times. So we realized our message must be afterwards. But there's a choice. If we find the message, if we find the person, we want to say it's found. And if we didn't find it, we want to say it's not found. But we'll only realize at the end. We have to go through all of them and then only realize if the name was there or not. So what we did initially, we said who are we looking for. We do it with the input box, we put it into a variable. And we created a Boolean variable called found, and we set it to false. Because at that stage, remember we just started the button. We haven't even started looking for the name. So at this stage, the name's not there. Do you agree? We have to start it somewhere, and it's better to say it's not there to assume it's there. So we rather say it's not there yet. Then we do our for loop from 1 to q to go through the array. We want to go through the array, go look for the name. And while we're looking, we've got our if. So that's our normal search. For loop to go through the array, our if statement takes each name at a time and compare it to the variable that we're looking for. See, is it the one we're looking for? Alright. Once we found it, we want to say found is true. And after we've been looking for everything, we want to just, if it's true, then we want to say found. If it's not true, we want to say not found. Then last time we ended off, and I just wanted to know, should we not have an else here for this one? For some reason, I'm giving it away a bit now, but for some reason, some people want to put the else there. Alright, so that gives you the idea it shouldn't be there. But why should it not be there? If we add the else there, why would it break the program? Yes.
Because the found variable was already false.
Yes. Our found is already false. And the problem is, if we put the else there, let's say there's 10 names. And we found the name at the 5th place. So we made found true. But then at the end, the last thing this will do is, it will compare the last one. And it will see, is the last one you're looking for? And no, it's not. So if you've got an else, it's going to make it false again. So if it became true somewhere, at the end, only the last person will decide what message will be displayed. Because if the last one is the one you're looking for, it's going to become true. And if it wasn't, you're going to make it false, even if it was found somewhere else. So we don't want the else there. Alright, so please just remember with this one. We don't want the else. I put in green. Some people wanted to use the repeat loop. And the green would have been applied for the, if you wanted to use repeat and not for. Alright, but otherwise don't worry about that. Any questions on this one? All good. Alright. Then we go, next button. Is the longest name. We want to know which name is the longest. So if we think algorithm wise, what would our steps be? Say again? Alright, so we can assume the first name is the longest name. That's our step 1. What's our step 2? Say again? Alright, so to check the other names, but that just, don't say that in algorithm. Expand it a bit, so we need our loop to go through the array. and then we need an if statement to compare the length of the other names in the array to the length of the one we thought is the longest. And if we find one that is longer, what do we want to do? Keep that name then as the longest and carry on. Alright, so what data type of thing are we keeping? A string. Do you agree? We want to keep the longest name, not the length. We want to keep the name that's the longest. So it's a string. So I think if you say long, the long will actually work. But long is not a good name. There's actually in a lot of other programming languages, long is also an integer. It's the bigger version of integer. Alright, so long is not a nice name. So I'm just gonna lng is a string. Alright, so we said first thing we want to do is we want to assume the first one is the longest. So for long, I want to give my s name at position 1. So there we take the first name, we put it into our long variable because we assume the first one is the longest. Now we need what? Our for loop. So for that we need our I. So for our for loop, I must start at 1 or 2. 1 is fine, 2 is just a little bit better. Because we already assumed the first one's the longest. We now don't need to compare it to itself. And we want to go to Q. Yes, the number of values that we've got. In this for loop, what do we want to do? We want to check, so we need a if. So if yes, so we couldn't just go if long, or let's say s name at I is more than. Oh, cool. Thank you very much. Alright, so would this have worked? No. Remember, if we do this, it will just look alphabetically which name comes first. And that's not what we wanted to do. We wanted to look for the longest name. So we needed to check the length of s name, and we want to compare that to the length of lng. Alright, so now we compared. So if the length of the name of the array is more than the length of the longest name we've got, what do we want to do? So our longest variable must become the variable that was in our array. If this name is longer than that one, then we want to keep that name in long. Then after the end for our for loop, we just want to display. So we can just do it in a show message, say longest name, then just add that variable. Alright, then our next one, the shortest name. So I'm going to take my longest name one, paste in there, but now we're doing short. So first step, we assume the first one is the shortest. We start from the first to next. We check the length, but now we see if it's less than the length of the shortest. Then if it is, then we want to give the shortest that one's name, and then we want to display the shortest one And that's our shortest name. Okay, everybody good, shortest. Should be relatively straightforward, same as longest. Show all names in caps. So it just means I want to see all the names, but I just want all of them to be capital letters. Alright, so what do I need? Okay, so we're going to use uppercase. Do you want to do it with the whole array? Yes, so we need for loop. It's always our question. So we do our for loop, starting at first one going to Q. Our for loop 1 to Q because we want to go through the whole thing. What do we need inside? Do we need an if? No, we want to do it to all. What do we want to do? We want to display. So I need redisplay. Redisplay.lines.add. And as soon as you do that, you realize, oh, but everything that's already there will stay there. So beforehand, I just need dot clear. Alright, then what do we want to display? Uppercase of my S name at I. That's all we need. Right, so you just clear it, you make your for loop to go through the whole thing, you display the uppercase of my S name. All good. Right. Then we go, add one name. We want to add one name. So what do we need to do? I told you there's 3 lines. So tell me what do I do? Yes. Yeah, so let's say this is add which name. Right, yes, what else do I need? So increment Q, yeah. Redisplay.lines.add my S name at position Q. Okay, that's all you need to do. So we say S name, Q is the amount of numbers we've got. So if we add 5 names, Q will be 5. So the first open space is number 6. So in S name at position 6, we're adding our new name, and we added a name. So our Q must become 1. So Q is 6 now. And then we just want to display name 6 as well. So it's just also in the array. Alright, all good. Right. And then the last one, remove a name. Right, now with a remove, what is our structure again? For if for. Okay, we remember that. For a sort it is for if. Alright. So we know it's going to be a for, and then we've got our if. We're going to have our for. Okay, once we've got 2 fors, we know we need 2 variables. We need I and j. I and j, you know, fish, healthy for you. You know I and j. Go to the freezers, you'll see I and j, fish fingers, and I and j, fillets, egg fillets. I and j, yeah, it's good come. Integer. But now with this, what else do I need? What else do I need to maybe do before I start all these things? We need to ask the user which one does he want to delete. So what data type will that be? String. Okay, so we're going to ask the user. So let's ask him. We're going to ask him with input box. So this is our delete button, which name, probably Jan. Alright, we want to start I at 1 goes to Q. What is our if for? Yeah, so remember these first 3 lines is our search part. This is the name we want to delete. Now we're going through the array to go look for that name. So if we find that name, so that's our if part. So we want to look for ask and see if ask is our S name at I. Okay, remember all of your begins. But again with this one, the key thing here, if you same with sort, remember there's 3 begins, 3 ends. And I told you if you want to forget 2, but only remember 1, which one must you remember? The if, by sort. And by this one, it's the same thing. You need to remember the if one. If you want to ignore the for loop and the second for loop one, that's fine. But the if is the important one. But just try to put all 3, then you're always safe. So let's begin there, and begin there. Then we can just end, and end. It's important to know this is our if. And this is our for loop for j. And this is our for loop for I. Alright, so step 1, we go look, we ask for the name, we go look for that name. Once we found the name in position I, where must j start? At I, and must go to Q. What do we want to do? Once we found the one that we want to delete, what do we want to do? All the ones underneath it must move up 1. So all the S names that is in position J must get all the S names in position J plus 1. So all the J plus 1s must just move up into J's place. Because remember J is at position I, which is the one we wanted to delete. So we want to replace that one with everything next. But now, after we've moved all of them up, still, if we find it, we want to move all of them up. What else do we want to do? We want to do one more thing if we found the one we want to remove. We want to decrease our Q, decrement Q. So Q must just get 1 less because we deleted a name now. So if we had 10 friends, we've only got 9 now. COVID stuff times. Alright, then our if and our for. Now, after all this, it's deleted. So what do we still need to do? Display. Remember, all of this happened only in RAM. So our normal display, we can go copy, paste, and there we sort it.